I was still on my knees when the siren started. My hands were covered in blood that wasn't mine. My service dog lay motionless in front of me, and 20 feet away, an HOA Karen was screaming about property values, while the smoking gun sat on the ground between us. Before you judge what happened next, you need to understand one thing clearly. My dog wasn't a pet. He was a fully trained service animal, registered, documented, and legally protected. But more than that, he was the reason I could function in public at all. I live with a disability that doesn't show on the outside. To strangers, I look normal. I walk fine. I talk fine. I smile when I need to. What they don't see are the panic attacks that come without warning, the dissociation, the moments where my body locks up and my brain shuts down like someone flipped a switch. Before my service dog, I barely left my house. Crowded spaces felt like traps. Loud noises sent my heart racing. I'd lose time, minutes sometimes, standing frozen, not knowing where I was or how I got there. I tried medication. I tried therapy. I tried pushing through it, like people told me to. None of it worked. My service dog did. He was trained to recognize changes in my breathing before I even noticed them. He would nudge me, ground me, apply pressure when my anxiety spiked. He guided me out of crowded places when my vision tunneled. He sat between me and strangers, creating space when my body couldn't handle being boxed in. He didn't bark. He didn't jump. He didn't react. He worked every single day. That's why I took his training seriously. That's why I followed the rules. He wore his vest. I carried documentation, not because I legally had to, but because I knew people liked to challenge what they didn't understand. And still, no amount of preparation can protect you from someone who believes their authority matters more than your life. To me, my service dog wasn't optional. He wasn't a convenience. He wasn't something I could just leave at home. He was medical equipment with a heartbeat. And on the day this story takes place, he was doing exactly what he had been trained to do. Calm, focused, obedient, when someone decided that her control issues were more important than my right to exist safely in my own neighborhood. When I first moved into the neighborhood, everything felt quiet, safe. It was one of those HOA communities that marketed itself as peaceful and family-friendly. Neatly trimmed lawns, identical mailboxes, streets so clean it felt like a brochure. I wasn't thrilled about the HOA, but I needed stability, and this place offered that, or so I thought. My daily routine was simple. Every morning I'd take my service dog for a short walk around the block. Same path, same pace. He walked at my side, never pulling, never wandering. Neighbors passed us all the time. Some smiled, some ignored us. A few asked polite questions. Most didn't care, which was exactly how I liked it. There were no incidents, no complaints, no problems. My dog never lunged, never barked, never relieved himself on lawns. I was meticulous because I knew how fast people were to judge anything they didn't understand. For months, nothing happened. Then small things started changing. Notes on doors about community standards. Emails reminding residents about unauthorized animals. HOA newsletters suddenly emphasizing leash rules that I had always followed. At first, I thought nothing of it. I assumed it was generic HOA nonsense. Someone overwatering their lawn. Someone parking half an inch too far from the curb. That's what HOAs do. What I didn't know was that someone had started watching me. Someone who didn't see a disabled resident following the rules. Someone who didn't see a trained service dog doing his job. She saw a target. And in an HOA, power-hungry people don't confront you right away. They document. They complain. They wait. By the time I realized I was on her radar, it was already too late. Because once an HOA Karen decides you don't belong, peace stops being an option. The first time I met her, I didn't know she would almost destroy my life. She didn't introduce herself like a normal neighbor. She didn't smile. She didn't ask a question. She stood in the middle of the sidewalk, arms crossed, blocking my path like she owned the pavement. I remember my service dog stopping instantly, sitting at my side without a word from me. Perfect posture, calm, focused. She looked down at him with open disgust. "You can't have that dog here," she said, her voice sharp and loud, like she was already mid-argument. I explained calmly that he was a service dog. She laughed, not a nervous laugh, not an awkward one, a mocking laugh. "Everyone says that," she snapped. "This is a no-pet community." I told her politely that service animals weren't pets and were protected by law. That's when her face changed. Her eyes narrowed, her jaw tightened. It was like I had challenged something sacred to her, not a rule, but her authority. "I'm on the HOA board," she said, emphasizing every word. And I've never approved that animal. Approved, like my disability required her permission. She demanded paperwork. I told her I wasn't required to show medical documentation. She scoffed and pulled out her phone, snapping photos of me and my dog without asking. "I'll be filing a report," she said. "We'll see what happens." Then she walked away like she'd just issued a court ruling. At first I thought it was just another unpleasant HOA interaction. I dealt with rude people before. I assumed she'd get bored and move on. She didn't. Over the next few weeks she appeared everywhere. Standing by her mailbox when I walked past, watching from her porch, slowing her car as she drove by us. Each time she stared at my dog like he was a weapon. Then the notices started. Warnings taped to my door about unauthorized animals, emails accusing me of violating community rules, fines threatened but never clearly explained. I responded calmly. I cited the law. I attached service animal guidelines. I documented everything. She responded with silence. But in HOA language, silence isn't peace. It's preparation. One afternoon, she confronted me again, this time with a clipboard. She claimed my dog had lunged at her. I asked when. She couldn't say. She claimed neighbors were afraid. She couldn't name one. When I pointed out that false reports were serious, she smiled. A thin, satisfied smile. "People like you always think the rules don't apply to them," she said. "This neighborhood has standards." That's when I realized something important. This was never about my dog. This was never about safety. This was never about rules. It was about control. And to her, my calm refusal to submit wasn't compliance. It was defiance. From that moment on, I wasn't a neighbor anymore. I was a problem she intended to eliminate. After that second confrontation, the harassment stopped pretending to be subtle. The emails became more frequent, not reminders, accusations. Multiple residents have expressed concern. Your animal poses a potential safety risk. Continued violations may result in penalties. Penalties for existing. Every message came from the HOA office, but I knew who was behind them. The language had her fingerprints all over it. Vague, threatening, carefully worded to sound official while saying nothing specific at all. I responded to every single one, calmly, professionally, with documentation. I quoted federal law. I attached ADA guidelines. I explained, again, that my dog was a service animal, not a pet, and that harassment based on disability was illegal. Days passed. No reply. Then came the fines. Not invoices. Warnings of potential fines. Amounts listed without dates. Violations without evidence. Just enough pressure to make you anxious without enough clarity to fight back cleanly. I requested a formal hearing. They scheduled it for a weekday morning. Short notice. No accommodations offered. When I showed up, Karen was already there. Sitting at the head of the table. Clipboard in front of her. Smile ready. She spoke like she was reading from a script. Claimed my dog barked excessively. Claimed he frightened children. Claimed I had been uncooperative. I asked for proof. She said it wasn't required. I asked for witnesses. She said complaints were confidential. I pointed out that false reporting carried legal consequences. That's when she leaned back in her chair and said, "We're just trying to maintain community harmony." Harmony. By singling me out. By isolating me. By treating my disability like an inconvenience. After that meeting, things escalated faster. I found HOA violation stickers slapped onto my door within hours of my walks. Someone called animal control, twice, claiming my dog was aggressive. Both times, the officers found nothing wrong and left apologizing. Once I overheard her telling another neighbor, "If we let one person bend the rules, everyone will." Like I was a loophole instead of a human being. The stress started affecting my health. I stopped sleeping well. My anxiety spiked. My service dog picked up on it immediately, staying closer, nudging more often, grounding me when my breathing went shallow. And somehow she saw that as weakness. One afternoon, she followed me down the sidewalk, yelling loudly enough for others to hear. "You think laws make you special?" she shouted. "This isn't how we do things here." I didn't respond. I kept walking. My dog stayed perfectly in step. That silence made her angrier than any argument ever could. From that point on, it felt like she was daring me to react, daring me to snap, daring me to raise my voice, daring me to make a mistake she could exploit. But I didn't. I documented everything. I saved emails. I recorded dates and times. I followed the law to the letter. What I didn't know, what no one warned me about, was that people like her don't stop when they're losing. They escalate. And when entitlement meets a weapon, rules stop mattering entirely. The day it happened started like every other day. Clear sky, quiet street, same routine. My service dog and I stepped outside just after noon. He walked at my side, vest on, leash loose, completely focused. I remember noticing how calm everything felt. No emails that morning, no notices on the door. For the first time in weeks, my chest didn't feel tight. I let myself believe, just for a moment, that maybe it was over. We hadn't even made it halfway down the block when I heard her voice. Sharp, loud, angry. "Hey!" I stopped. My dog sat automatically, right at my knee. She was standing on her driveway, phone in one hand, something clenched in the other. Her face was flushed, eyes wild, like she'd been waiting for this. "I told you already!" she shouted, marching toward us. "That dog is not allowed here." I took a breath and kept my voice even. I told her, again, that he was a service animal and that she needed to leave us alone. That's when she snapped. "You think laws protect you?" she screamed. "You think you're untouchable?" Neighbors started opening doors. Curtains moved. Someone across the street froze halfway into their driveway. My dog stayed calm, perfectly still, eyes forward. She raised her hand. At first, my brain didn't process what I was seeing. It didn't make sense. This was an HOA dispute, a power trip. Clipboard nonsense. Not this. There was a loud crack. For half a second, everything went silent. Then my dog collapsed. No growl, no movement toward her, no warning at all. He just went down. I remember screaming his name and dropping to the ground, my hands shaking so badly I could barely touch him. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might tear out of my chest. People were yelling. Someone shouted to call 911. Someone else was crying. She stood there, frozen. Then she started yelling. "He came at me!" He was aggressive. I was scared. Lies spilling out faster than anyone could stop her. The weapon slipped from her hand and hit the concrete. My focus never left my dog. I pressed my hands against him, begging him to stay with me, trying to keep him calm even though I was falling apart. My vision tunneled. My breathing went shallow. The world felt unreal, like I was watching everything through thick glass. This was the dog who kept me grounded. Now he was the one grounding me to reality in the worst possible way. Sirens cut through the chaos. Red and blue lights flooded the street. Police rushed in, separating people, securing the scene. An officer knelt beside me and my dog. His expression changed instantly when he saw the vest. "Is this a service animal?" he asked. "Yes," I choked out. Everything shifted. They took my statement slowly, carefully. They spoke to witnesses, neighbors who had seen everything, who had heard her shouting, who had watched her raise her hand. They asked her questions too. Her story didn't hold. It never does when it's built on entitlement instead of truth. As paramedics worked on my dog, she kept insisting she was protecting the community, that she felt threatened, that the HOA would back her up. But no one was listening anymore. For the first time since this started, she wasn't in control. She was just another person standing on a sidewalk, surrounded by evidence she couldn't explain away. And as they loaded my service dog into the emergency vehicle, I realized something that sent a cold wave through me. This wasn't just harassment anymore. This was a crime. And everything she had done up until this moment, every email, every false report, every threat, was about to come back and bury her. The street was quiet again once the emergency vehicles pulled away. Too quiet. The neighbors who had gathered slowly retreated back into their houses, doors closing softly like no one wanted to be the next sound to exist in that moment. The sidewalk was still marked where everything had happened, like the day itself refused to move on. I sat on the curb shaking. An officer handed me a bottle of water and spoke gently, grounding me the way my service dog usually did. He told me witnesses had confirmed everything. Multiple people, clear statements, no contradictions. She hadn't just lost control. She'd been seen losing it. Karen, on the other hand, was still talking, still arguing, still insisting she was right. She demanded to speak to someone in charge, demanded the HOA be contacted, demanded special consideration because she was protecting property values. The officers listened, then they stopped her. One of them calmly explained that the HOA had no authority over what she had done, that her position meant nothing now, that discharging a weapon under these circumstances was a serious criminal matter. That's when her face finally drained of color. For the first time since I'd met her, she looked small. They placed her in the back of a police car. No shouting, no dramatic scene, just cold reality clicking into place. The door shut with a solid final sound that echoed louder than any argument she'd ever thrown at me. She never looked at me, not once. At the emergency clinic, I waited for hours that felt like days. I replayed everything in my head. The walks we took, the routines we shared, the way he always checked on me before I even realized I needed help. When the vet finally came out, I stood up so fast my legs almost gave out. She told me the truth straight, no sugarcoating, no false hope. My service dog survived, but his career didn't. The injury meant he could no longer safely work. The dog who had given me my independence, my confidence, my ability to exist in the world without fear, was officially retired. I cried harder than I had on the sidewalk. Not because he was gone, but because something precious had been taken from both of us. The legal fallout came fast after that. Body cam footage, witness statements, HOA emails I'd saved, false reports, harassment records, everything laid out in a neat, undeniable line of cause and effect. Karen was removed from the HOA board immediately. Then came the charges, then the civil case. The community that once let her bully people in the name of standards suddenly wanted nothing to do with her. Neighbors avoided her. The HOA issued formal apologies, to me and quietly, to others who had stayed silent. She moved out before everything was finished. I never saw her again. As for me, life didn't snap back to normal. It never does after something like that. But it moved forward. My service dog still walks beside me. No vest now, no duties, just loyalty and love. He saved my life once. I'll spend the rest of his giving him the peace he earned. And I learned something I wish I hadn't had to learn the hard way. Entitlement feels powerful until it's forced to answer for itself. Rules don't belong to the loudest voice. Authority doesn't come from a clipboard. And no position, HOA or otherwise, puts someone above the law. She thought she could control me. Instead, she destroyed everything she built. And all I did was stand my ground. If this story made you angry, shocked, or even just uncomfortable, good. Because stories like this don't change anything if people stay silent. If you believe power should have limits, like this video so it reaches more people. If you've ever dealt with entitlement, abuse, or harassment, share your story in the comments. You're not alone, and if you want more real stories where actions have consequences, subscribe. Because accountability only exists when people are watching.